This episode is brought to you by the outstanding shows of the You Run Podcast Network. From TV to true crime and everything in between, the network is your home of entertainment. So don't delay. Join in with the fun at yourunpodcast.com today.
Ho, ho, ho. I'm
That
feeling
was the
cheery.
lamest Santa Claus impression I've ever seen in my life.
I'll try again. Ho, ho, ho. Is that better?
Why are you holding back, man? Give it your ho, 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 ho. Oh, actually, no, mine weren't as good either.
Yours is terrible. Some people say that Art the Clown has killed the most children of any clown. And let's be honest, we all know that that crown goes to Ronald McDonald.
I am fed up with your bad jokes. I'm coming for you both.
Ooh, that's creepy. What's going on here?
I don't know. I didn't like that. That's Gladys.
Dude, that bitch, man. I told you she'd take over.
She's been doing some weird things in the last couple of weeks, but we'll talk about that later. Should we start the show?
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about what's going on now.
Yeah, me too.
It's Christmas time, it's the time to be afraid. It's Christmas time, it's time to talk about being named. And on this podcast of horror, we'll spread a little fear. Watch a horror movie now and grab a beer. And then Scott mentions the actress's boobs, followed by Marc saying, come on, dude. This is the place to have fun and say a curse or two. You Run Podcast Horror Movie Review. Watch a horror, do it now, it's Christmas time. Watch a horror, do it now, it's Christmas time. Watch a horror, then listen to a great fun review. Run Past Christmas. Do it now, it's Christmas time. Do it now, it's Christmas time. Watch a horror, then listen to a great fun review. Run Past Christmas. You Run Podcast Christmas.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
That's cool. Also, I'm going to be sad to see that go.
Let's do this shit.
It's very stylish. Yeah, for anyone watching on YouTube, you will see that Mark is donning Art the Clown's fabulous Christmas glasses.
I can't do the episode wearing these. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna take those off.
That is also the last time you're going to hear that intro. You're going to hear it at the end of this episode, but this is our final Christmas episode of the year.
That makes me sad, man. That makes me very sad.
Yeah, and I really like our Christmas music this year. I think we'll keep that for next year.
Yeah, it's not just that. I think it's more just for the closing of seasonal horror, you know? Like, it's hard to... You can't watch these types of movies in the summer. I mean, you can, but you're a psychopath if you do. So, like, when it gets to this time of year, it's always that anxiety of when do you start? When do you start watching Christmas movies? And then when do you cut it off? When's the stopping point that you can no longer watch them? Do you go a couple of weeks into January? Is it when the Christmas lights come down that it then starts to feel weird?
I think if you're watching Christmas movies into January, I think you've got some issues. Like, I am very much like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days after Boxing Day, our Christmas stuff is down, it's packed up, it's back in the loft, we're back to normal house.
Yeah, I think for me, my cutoff is, so I'll probably go back to work on the 6th of January. That's the first Monday of the year. So I think everything will be down, lights, trees, everything, that'll all be packed away before I go back to work. So I think that'll be my cutoff for Christmas movies this year. Because I'll still be in that sort of holiday vacay mode. But yeah, it's sad, man. It's sad. That means I've got to wait like another, 11 months before I can start watching horror again.
Yeah, you do.
Not
For Christmas
again,
horror,
sorry,
anyway.
Christmas, yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Better not horror in general.
You are aware you're part of a horror podcast. You do this every week, right? Welcome to the You Run Podcast Horror Movie Review. My name is Scott.
My name is Mark.
Who was sipping a beer, which is why there was a delay. It's not an internet lag. We are an interactive horror movie review show. You can follow us on social media everywhere by following @YouRunPodcast. If you're on Instagram, follow Mark. He's @Reviews from the Crypt or @VHS from the Crypt. You can also send us an email, yourunpodcast@gmail.com. You can also leave us a voicemail on Instagram or X by using the DM feature. We got none of that this week because, as we revealed last week, we recorded back to back. So we used all that on the last episode. We are in the final 2 episodes of our competition, where you can win 3 pieces of merchandise from our store. You could have the True Crime Heather Silman t-shirt. You could have the Oozing Daddy Vibes Marc t-shirt. And you could also have Let's Talk About Buttered Sausage t-shirt. You could get all 3 of those, or any 3 pieces you want, for absolutely free. All you need to do is leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, screenshot it and send us to us, and you're in the draw. If you've already done that, comment on a Spotify episode and we'll put you into the draw. And in 2 episodes' time, our first episode back in January, big spinny wheel, name will come out. I'll send you a message. You give me your address, tell me what you want, and I'll send you the 3 items. It's really that easy.
Yep. 2 episodes time. You mean next week?
No,
Next week
2
will be our
episodes.
first gen.
No, next week
Yes.
comes out on the 30th. It's a New Year's
Yes.
episode next week.
Yeah,
Much.
I'm sorry. I always think Christmas is the end of the year. That's it. It's like the 25th of December, and that's it. We're into the next year. We're not. Sorry.
No, we've got one more. Also, thanks for your big sell on how good that competition is. You were like, yes, you do get that. Yes, you do.
Enthusiasm, man. You've got to bring it.
Yeah, salesman of the fucking year. Maybe I should. Also, I've just realised we've still got the not the gingerbread man, the Krampus background. Let me change that. That's better.
Oh, there we go. That's better. There we go. Now we're more on topic.
What a stylish gentleman he is.
Yes.
What a distinguished gentleman. If you've never listened before, because I imagine this episode is going to bring a lot of new listeners to the table, we are a horror movie review podcast. We give you a synopsis of the movie. We don't do full play-by-plays, but we give you a deep dive into what we like, what we didn't like, what we think worked, what we didn't think worked. We normally have some messages. We haven't got any this week. We do some interactive features, some games, some facts, roundups and scores, and that's it. That is this show. It's very light-hearted. It's me and Mark just having a chat and taking you along for the ride. I'm going to put this out there now. This is our most requested episode ever.
I get it. I understand why. I mean, we've done every one now, haven't we? This is it. Apart from All Hallows Eve, this is the most consistent we've been in terms of horror movie releases.
Yeah, we've done Terrifier not long after you joined the show. We've done Terrifier 2 as a new release. We're doing Terrifier 3. We're kind of new release time ish. We're a little bit behind.
I mean, we couldn't. We discussed this. We was like, shall we do it new release in like November or October when it came out? And we made the decision to wait until December, and that way more people have seen it, and then we can be more spoiler heavy with our discussion as opposed to holding back a little bit.
Yeah, exactly that. Today we return to Miles County to catch up with what seems to be everyone's new favourite clown. Pennywise has been forgotten, and Art the Clown is now the man. Sienna has been institutionalized for the last 5 years following the events of Terrifier, which, yeah, I get it. You deserve some mental health treatment after that. Jonathan seems to be doing well, living his best life as a bullied kid at college. Unfortunately for them, Art and Victoria have escaped, and they're awoken by a demolition team just before the holidays, and they rise up and kill everybody. Christmas themes, costumes, brutal kills, a dash of religious rhetoric. It's Terrifier 3. And is this good, or has the demonic clown outstayed his welcome? It's time to deck the hall with bowels of intestines. Fa la 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 la. I know exactly where I want to start.
Right, so you can start this week then. I'll let you pick where you want to go, and we'll see where it goes from there.
I want to start at the fact we start directly after the events of Terrifier 2. And I'm cool with this until we get to Art's headless body that manages to get from where he was after he kills the cop all the way to the psych ward. And I was like, did he get
Yeah,
the
but we don't,
bus?
do we? We don't start there. We start in the present with
Yeah,
the Christmas opening, don't we? We get the
yeah,
cold opening of the Christmas kills.
yeah. I'm going to start here. We'll go back to the cold opening because the cold opening I didn't think was that cold. But how did his body get from where it was to the psych ward? Like, did it get a
Yeah, because
bus?
he killed the cop and cut his head
Yeah,
off, and then there was that really cool scene of him getting on the train, and he was like holding the cop's head on the train.
yeah, but
That
I
was
don't.
awesome, man. Like, I was with you. I'd seen this movie once, and there was so much that I didn't pick up on because it was like a lot of it that I weren't really fully invested in, and I was like, I kind of went into it with the mindset of like, right, it's Art the Clown. I'm here for the kills, and I'm here for Sienna, and it's a slow burner to start with. Things are a bit slow. They don't necessarily dive straight into it, other than the cold open. It
What did
takes a
you
lot of
think?
time to get to the character catch up that we've known from the second movie.
What
But
did you
yeah, I
think of
mean
the
that
cold open?
I love the cold open. I thought it was really, really cool. They've recast obviously the actors that they showed us in the teaser trailer that came out 2 years ago or a year ago, whenever it was. It's a different little girl now. But I was invested, man. I thought it was really, really good. I like the way that they handled the child killings, especially in this instance. The second one that they do later on in the movie, I wasn't as comfortable with, and it was one of the ones that I didn't like as much throughout. But I think in this first opening, I thought it was handled very, very well. The death of the mum was incredibly brutal, and I think this is one of the things that I kind of had issue with myself the first time I watched it. I think I'm so numb to the brutality of the Terrifier movies as a whole now that I watched it the first time around. I was like, yeah, man, there just weren't enough here. It weren't as gory or as brutal as the second film, and it's lackluster in so many areas in that sense. But then I watched it again and I paid more attention the second time around. I was like, do you know what, man? No, this is just more consistently brutal, more consistently gory, that you become so inept to it. And like this kill in the opening segment where they kill the child and then he goes and kills the husband, I thought the weak effects were very present in terms of the axe kill for the husband in his bed. I
Yeah,
thought that was a bit wonky, especially when you're opening your movie and showcasing this is Terrifier 3. Here we go. You had that awesome kill in Terrifier 2 with that girl in a bed. Strap in. I thought that was a bad decision to showcase that side of things because I don't think that was as strong as it could have been. But then the mother kill afterwards, as he chases her down the stairs and he axes her at the door, and then he cuts her arm off, and that was all really, really cool and really, really graphic and gory.
yeah, it
So
was.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the first opening.
There's a couple of bits in, like, there's bits of the cold open I thought were really good. Like, I thought the way they handled the first child kill off screen, I thought that was really good. I was like, yeah, okay, cool, I get it. You killed a kid. I don't need to see that. That's perfect. You done that right. The axe kill, same as you. It was okay. The bit that I just went, what the fuck are you doing? Was the axe through the door, and the here's Johnny
Here's
face. I
Johnny.
was like, oh fuck. Like,
I liked
if
it
you,
because I knew
yeah,
it was coming and I expected it. So when they actually went and committed to it, I was like, yeah, at least you
yeah.
know you're committing to it.
I kind of wanted, like, there's lots of movie references in this. There's a movie reference later to Black Christmas. They're riddled all the way through
The
it.
Black Christmas one was cool.
Yeah, the Black Christmas one really cool, but none of them are very subtle. Like Damien Leone,
No,
the entirety of Terrifier 2 is a nod to Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's beautifully done. In this, he's like, axe through the door. Here's The Shining. And then it's like, man in the attic. Here's Black Christmas. And he does, like, every time there's a nod to another movie, it's very much like the only thing that's missing is some music behind it that goes, ta-da! And
yeah,
it rubbed me a little, not the wrong way, because I enjoyed this film, but I was just like, like, you try to establish yourself as your own thing, and you've kind of done that. You don't need Art the Clown to reference other horror movies for people to love it.
no, and I think you're right, and I think I agree in that sense that yeah, he didn't need to incorporate that, and he didn't need to do it, but the fact that he didn't take away anything from it for me. I was like, yeah, okay, he's got an axe, the door's being closed behind him. Here's Johnny, and he probably thought the same thing as we did, being horror fans. And the fact that he put it in there as if to say, like, yeah, I know what you're thinking, so let's just do it. I kind of liked. You know,
Yeah,
the Black Christmas one was, I don't think the Hey Johnny one was as on the nose. No, sorry, I'm rephrasing that. The Here's Johnny one is very on the nose. I think the Black Christmas one is more homage,
subtle.
or more subtle. And like when he went up into the attic to do his little hibernation thing, when he did that and he went up there, I was like, if this dude doesn't find a fucking rocking chair and sit in front of a window, I'm going to be cursing this film to death. And he did, and he walked up and the rocking chair was there, and the whole arch window. I was like, yeah, brilliant. Please take a seat, sir.
See, I love the art and Victoria escape. I think that's great. I love the fact that Victoria is now this additional character. I really enjoy the dynamic of the two of them. There's some times in it that I just went, oh my God, no. And other times I was like, this is really fun. Like their dynamic, as gruesome as it is, at times is quite entertaining. And I didn't expect to get that. Why do they hibernate? It's not explained. It pissed me off. Why? It's
not explained. So this is more like a healing process. Like I might be wrong. Just know everything that I'm going to tell you. She slits her wrist.
How is it a healing process? She caused more harm before she went to sleep.
She does, but if you pay attention, it's a vital part of the lore of this movie. So at the end of Terrifier 2, we see Vicky's eyes glows. Yep.
Yeah.
She's still Vicky at that point. She's still 100% Vicky. Her eyes glow. This is possession. So Vicky is being possessed by a demon from the Clown Cafe, or hell, if you will, depending on how you want to refer to it.
Yeah.
So when you see the glowing eyes, that's the possession side of it. So Vicky is still herself in this point, and you get that scene at the beginning where she's having that interaction with Chris Jericho and all the rest of it. And it's like, oh, please help me, please help me. That's Vicky. And then the eyes glow again, and she just turns and flips the shit. If you watch the scenes back to back close together, the end credit scenes from Terrifier 2 going into Terrifier 3, it does a very good job of showcasing her transition from being herself and then being possessed, and then being herself, and then being possessed, and back and forth between the two. And it's that battle between the two of them and the possession side of things. Now, when she slits her wrists in the bath, that's Vicky. You can see her in the mirror, and you can see her arguing with her inner demon, the possession side of it, saying, you're disgusting, no one's going to fuck you, no one's going to do this to you. And you can see Vicky giving up. And I think that's when she slits her wrist, it is Vicky's death. I think that's when we officially see Vicky die and the demon fully take over Vicky's body.
Right.
It showcases it again later on in the final act when Vicky explains to Sienna, she says, in order to, she wants to take over Sienna's body. She wants to possess Sienna. And she says in order to do so, she needs to break her down so she's got nothing left to live. She's got nothing to fight for. And then she tries to possess her at the end. You see that. You see the whole thing. I didn't get that on my first watch. I was like, this is weird. What the fuck's happening here?
All of
that. I got it on the second time through.
Yeah, I got all of that. But that doesn't explain why they went to sleep for 5 years. Have they become like the new creeper? Like, is this?
No, I think that was just sort of a healing segment. I think that was a healing process. Obviously, this is coming off the aftermath of the battle. Hart's just had his head cut off, and because there was a scene where he finds his head again after the mental institute thing, and you next see him on the subway, and it's gaffer taped on. He has duct tape wrapped around his neck to hold his head in place. You know, so I think when they go into the house, she gets into the bathtub. I think that's Vicky killing herself and committing herself completely to the demon. And I think Art goes up into the loft in order to rejuvenate, to heal. I think that's what's happening. I might be wrong. This is just my perception of it on a second watch. And I was like, right, okay, that's cool. That makes sense to me. This is where I'm going to take it. I might be wrong, but this is how I'm perceiving it. And I think he's healing in that instance.
Yeah, you could be right. Like, I just think it lacked explanation. I think when we get to facts, there's a reason why a lot of this is lacking explanation, and it's all to do with the distributor that Damien Leone worked with. Let's talk about Sienna.
Do you suffer from a lack of a father figure? Do you have clinical depression? Have you ever accidentally broken your mom's favorite coffee cup, and when she found out you did it, she tied you to a bed and spanked you with a metal spatula? If you said yes to any of these things, I don't care. And to keep it a bean, no one cares.
Sounds like an interlude from an Eminem song.
Sienna has so many mental health issues in this movie, and for the most part, they do a good job of like
Yeah.
the hallucinations and things like that. There's a segment towards the end where I was very unsure of whether she was hallucinating it or it was actually happening, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But I like this idea that she spent 5 years in therapy, that it's her uncle coming to get her. So it's her mum's sister who's going to take her in.
Yeah.
And like the step of the uncle comes and picks her up and brings her home. And I like the fact that it's all about bringing Jonathan home for Christmas. It's the first time they've really been together in the last 5 years. I like the fact they built tension between Sienna and Jonathan. And also, Jonathan is an absolute trooper because he's kind of fine.
He is and he isn't, you know, like you see again, they do that thing where they show you the letters that he sent to Sienna after the events of the second movie, where he's fully into it. Like he's fully like, yes, the demon child must be stopped because the demon child wasn't possessed at the beginning, and then that were transferred to Vicky at the beginning of Terrifier 3. And he's like, yes, we must stop, we must deal with this. And then he slowly transitions out of that. And I think they do a good job of showing the two of them and how they've dealt with the aftermath of the events very differently and how they've both gone in very different directions. Sienna's very much taken upon the approach of she knew it happened and she knew it was real, and she writes that in her diary. She's like, this is fact, this is what happened, but I need to present it to a world where it's digestible so people understand it and people accept it. So she chooses to live a lie in order to showcase it in a normalized way. And then that causes a tension between her and Jonathan, because Jonathan is very much a believer, but Sienna's now much like convinced herself otherwise because of the lie she's living. She's like, no, it didn't happen, Jonathan. This is what happened in those events. You're just seeing it all wrong. And that's what's caused the divide and the rift between the two of them. And I think that's really well handled in this movie. And it's a very enticing aspect of the story.
Yeah, I'd agree. And Jonathan is heavily bullied at college, and I felt sorry for him, but I kind of get why he was being bullied.
He has the longest neck on the planet. I swear between each installments of this movie, his neck grows about 6 inches. He's beginning to look like a fucking giraffe, man.
Yeah, also...
Nerd. You're a fucking nerd. Nerd. You're a fucking nerd. And no one likes you. No one likes you.
His character, like he's not. I've seen him interviewed. I've seen loads of stuff he does. Elliot Fullman's wonderful guy, but the character of Jonathan is the biggest dweeb on the face of the earth, and he doesn't have a backbone, and it irritates me so much. Like when he meets the girl who's like super fan.
Yes, like super fit as well. Use that to your advantage, dude.
Yeah, he completely misread the signal. She's like, I will do anything to get you on my podcast. And he's like, yeah, well, I'll have a think about it. No, you are a young man with a young woman throwing herself at you to get you on the podcast. Just say yes.
Yes, you don't even have to go on the podcast. Just say yes. Look at the window of opportunity you have presented to you, dude.
Maybe we need you to have a super fan who's like really cool, who can come on our show, who no, you don't want anyone stalking.
I've been down that road. No, we're not doing super fans anymore.
Demolition workers waking up Art and Vicky. I work in construction, same as you do. And Lisa questions, she's like, why are they going and looking around the house? This is so unrealistic. I was like, actually, no. When they demolish a house, there's people who go in and they check that the gas is off. They check the electricity's off. They check that there's nothing in the house that's going to explode, and there's no one in there alive. Like, this is real. And I love the two interactions. I love the fact that there's a guy upstairs like, are you real? Are you real? And he's like, cool. Yeah. And then downstairs, like he's going, John, come and look at this. And downstairs, you've got the other guy who's like, Bill, there's a body in the bath. Come, and neither of them can hear each other, and they both get absolute. Well, the guy downstairs gets it first, and then
which is pretty easy going for him, to be honest with you. He had an easy way out.
Yeah, the guy who Art gets, Vicky comes upstairs.
You dirty bitch!
Yeah, I have no explanation for this. I'll be honest with you. I can't justify this in terms of the law and the reasoning behind it. I was under the illusion that Art was a Ken doll up until the point when he has a piss in the urinal later on in this movie. Yeah, what I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't
Well,
know why
they-
the dildo of choice she picked. She thought that
Yeah.
would be a good idea.
Like they show it come up slowly, and as it was going up slowly, I'm going, no. Do you know? I think there's lines that even Damien Leone's not going to cross. He's not going to do this, and if he does, it'll be insinuated, not shown. I was like, oh no, okay, we're going to show the whole thing, and she's going to have a full-on orgasm while mutilating herself, while Art kills the other person. Honestly, after that, I was like, wow, yeah, that was something.
That's the thing. There's not a lot of nudity in this franchise, really.
No.
Apart from the first one where that girl gets cut upside down. But like you would think in a slasher movie, they would go down that generic sort of, ooh, girl having sex, she gets killed, which again does happen in Terrifier 3, but there's no nudity involved in that scene.
No, but that was just wow. I just
Yeah.
I didn't know what to say then. I'm not sure what to say
No.
now.
You dirty bitch!
I don't, which is why I'm deferring from it because it's just it's wild and I don't get it. It's
What's even
I'm not
more
going to
wild?
say I'm not going to say it's there to not make sense and like I want more answers to it because I don't. I just want to forget about it. You know?
Yeah. What also doesn't make sense is Sienna goes and lives with her auntie and uncle and her, I don't know, cousin, her young cousin, who's, what do we reckon, 10?
Yeah, maybe even a little bit younger.
Yeah, let's say she's 10. Sienna's been in a mental institute for the last 5 years. And she's like, oh, we used to play games and you were my best friend. Sienna was like 17 when this girl was 5. How the fuck were they best friends? And Sienna's like, I've got such fond memories of us spending time together and telling stories. What fucking story is a 5-year-old telling you? I was like, this is the biggest plot hole and biggest fuck up in writing ever. Like, none of that made any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you now you mention it, but I never picked up on it on my watch. I didn't think the unrealistic dynamic between the two was present. I wasn't like, ooh, this is weird. I guess if you break it down like that, yeah, I guess it is a little bit strange, but I don't know. You've got to get a little bit of give and take, haven't you?
I think I got that dynamic because obviously I've got much older boys like Kane and Seiko are both 18, and then we've got kids who are like 6 and 8 or 7 and 8. So, like, there is like 5 years ago, there is no point that Kane and Jack had like they've not got moments. They're brothers, but even they don't have moments like, oh, do you remember that time where we had this deep, like, meaningful chat about life? And like that's what they're done. It's like she should have been cast as like a teenager, but she wasn't. I think
that's kind of what the approach they're going for, though. Like, I don't know what the age of Sienna is supposed to be in these films, but I feel like she's supposed to be a lot younger than the actual actress looks.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I just thought it was weird. And I'll be honest, from here is where it starts getting a bit like there's several scenes that come, and every single one of the scenes I just went, why? Like, Art goes to the mall. He meets Santa first. Meeting Santa is arguably my favorite bit in this, where he's like, yeah, and he's like pointing, and then like they do that whole thing where like he's Santa's friend and they have a drink and he sits on Santa's lap and he pisses all over. All of that scene is hilariously funny, and the kills in that scene are fabulous. And then they ruined that by sending him to the mall. And in the mall, like the scene of him on the throne and the kids coming up and giving him presents, I was like, this is quite fun. And the bomb, like, why? I don't get it. It makes no sense.
No,
There's no.
No,
It doesn't
I'm going to
fit
agree
with
with
his
you there.
character.
I think I kind of get what he was trying to do and where he was trying to go with it. He's got the Santa suit now, which was a very, very cool scene. I loved the kill of the guy who was initially the Santa, who he gets the suit from, where he gets him with the nitric acid or whatever it is and like freezes all his parts and smashes them with his hammer. That carrot in the face thing at the end was fucking horrific. I think Damon Leone does a really good job of when he showcases kills, he fixates on the eyes behind the prosthetics.
Yeah.
So even like at the beginning when he killed the mum and she cuts like half of her face off with the axe, you've still got one fully functioning eye, which is very realistic because it's a human behind the makeup. He does that again with the kill with the Santa when he blasts his face off and smashes half of it off and rips the skin off from his beard. It's clearly a person underneath the prosthetics and he's got actual functioning eyes, and it adds a level of realisticness to what most people in that situation when demonstrating practical effects in horror, they tend to just go with puppetry or something like that.
Yeah.
But putting it on an actual human so they get that realistic eye movement is something that Damien Leone's incredibly good at. It looked fantastic when he takes a Santa beard off and sticks a carrot in the nose. It's like, fuck, man. Like, even though some of the practical effects aren't the sharpest and a little bit wonky in places, the fact that it's done on a human makes it all the more realistic, I think. And I think that's what covers a lot of his actions in certain places with his makeup effects. Anyway, I digress. We're getting to the mall. I like the mall transition scene. I like the thing that he would immediately then go and want to be Santa and take on that persona. And the first thing you would do is be a mall Santa at Christmas. You know, you're going to want to go there. I got that. And I love that he had that really cool, creepy
Christmas mask.
Yeah, but it's like All Silent Night or whatever that horror movie. What's the remake of the latest one where they had that like actual plastic Santa mask thing?
Yeah,
I liked it. I thought it was creepy as fuck. Like, I think it's probably more creepy than the renowned Terrifier makeup now because we're so used to seeing it in day-to-day pop culture. So when he had that creepy mask on, I was like, fuck, man, that's terrifying.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Sienna saw him as well, and she freaks out. And
because she knew without him taking the mask off, she knew exactly who it was. And I was like, yeah, man, that's a creepy little aura that's going on there. But then we do get to the scene where he's got the kids coming on. Not only did I dislike the bombing, I disliked how dragged out this scene was in particular. I felt like this went on for a very long period of time, and I knew there was something bad going to happen. But it was then the introduction of the children sitting on his knee, and it prolonged this sense of unease, which I get, that's what you want to do in a horror movie. But when you're introducing children into that scenario and you're prolonging it, the sense of uncomfortableness got to the point where there was a certain part of me, I was like, I don't want to watch this, man. And usually that feeling in me in horror movies it bypasses very quickly. But because this scene in particular was dragged out so long, I was tempted, man. I was tempted to be like, look, I don't like this. This isn't cool. I want to turn this off. And then they have the final bombing at the end. And it didn't benefit the story in any way. It just felt, you're better than this, man. Like, you don't need to go down that path by blowing up children like a terrorist in order to showcase how ruthless you are as a creator into making horror.
It was there just a shock. And I don't care what anyone says. It was that it doesn't service the plot in any way. The only thing it does is it's showcased on the news, which causes Sienna to have her meltdown that ends up with her being drugged up in her bed. But
the thing is about it, though, like, it just adds less realism and less grounded presence to art as a character. Because if somebody did this in that situation, it wouldn't just be a random news article of being like, we don't know who it was. It's like this CCTV footage. There's a dude in white makeup and dressed like the Crow. We know exactly who did it. You know, like, and there was no like spread SWAT team trying to find him or anything like that. Like, it just wouldn't play out the way it did, you know? And that's what it pulled me out of it a lot. And I think that's the biggest fault of that scene.
Yeah, and also there feels like there's so much missing from this. Like, she goes and sees Jonathan, Sienna goes and sees Jonathan, and she's saying she needs to go back and get the sword. She needs to go back to the Terrifier. And she does. And she brings the sword home wrapped in a present. Where
was that scene?
Exactly. I want to see her go back, and I want her to see her terrified to walk through that area again. and go back down into that hole and dig out her sword and put it, and then realize when she's coming home, shit, I can't just walk into the house with a sword. I've been in a mental institute for 5 years. Let me wrap. I want to see that whole element. That whole section is
But whose
missing.
fault's that? Whose fault is that he
I-
didn't show that? Is that our
I-
fault because we criticized him for being too
No.
long in the previous movie?
I know whose fault it is, and when I get to facts, that is going to get really thrown out there because I'm very unhappy that Damien Leone compromised on his vision.
Right. Because for
did
me,
it-
when I watched that and that scene was missing and it felt very much like that scene was missing, I was like,
Yeah.
dude, what the fuck? Like, that's a perfect way to showcase Sienna's trauma by making her revisit the situation that made her the way she is. Like, that could have been really, really impactful to the movie. What the fuck? Why are we now back
Yeah.
at the house and she's stiffing it behind a tree? Pissed me off to no end that it wasn't there. But then I sat back and I reflected and I was like, is that our fault? Is it our fault for criticizing the second one for being too long on the internet? And is he listening to us too much? You know,
No,
we'll save it for facts to find out why. But yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
kind of
there's-
where I was in my mindset when we were watching it.
I'm sure there's a 3.5 hour cut of this that we're going to get when it goes to physical media.
I'll
fucking
watch it, man.
convinced.
I'll watch
Yeah,
it. And I can't
I
wait
will
for
as
it if
well.
it does.
So Sienna's having multiple visions, and she has a vision of a demon and various other things. And again, it feels like something's missing because Art and Victoria show up at her house, and this is straight after she's had visions. And I'm like, is this a vision? Is this actually happening? How did they find her? How did they get here? There's just this whole section again that's missing. Did Art see her leave? Did Art get there? But before he does this, he obviously goes to the university. He goes to the university or the college, and we get what I think is meant to be the big shock kill of this movie.
Back, I got a chainsaw.
It is in a way. It's fucking rough, man. It's a brutal kill. It's horrible. It's not nice. And I think because we're so numb to it now, by the time we're on the third movie, that we take away from the fact of how graphic and violent this second one is. This kill is fucking awful. And I think the purpose of it is because of the amount of stick. And again, Damien Leone listening to fans and listening to criticism, taking them on board and incorporating him to his next movie. He's got so much shit for being a sexist and having beef against women because all he does is mutilate women in his movies. He decided to stick a chainsaw up some dude's ass, and you see visually on screen him cutting an actual penis in half with a chainsaw, as if to say, "Look, I kill men too." Ha ha ha. That's the only reason he did that. That's the only reason he killed the dude in such a brutal fashion. And I know he killed the girlfriend prior to that in the shower. Nothing is ever going to beat the impactfulness of that kill in the bedroom in Terrifier 2. I think that's going to be one of those kills that goes down in history as being one of the most graphic and violent kills across horror cinema. And rightfully so. It's fucking awful. And every time I watch Terrifier 2, it doesn't get any easier. It is one of the most violent and brutal things I think I've witnessed in horror movies.
And I think what's missing from Art this time around, in Terrifier 2, he is malicious beyond the point of being malicious. Like, he's done this horrendous act, then he comes back and pours vinegar and salt into the wounds. Like, he kills the mum and then he tortures Jonathan by feeding her mashed potato. Like, all of those elements are an extra level of just nastiness. And in this, he does the kill, but there's never that extra step of malicious intent. There's never that extra step of
we get that in the final sequence with the auntie. I do feel like we do get that in the final sequence with the auntie, but it isn't done throughout with the other ones. I know what you're trying to say is it's a kill and then it's move on to the next and then move on to the next. It's not that repetitive reoccurrence of I've killed that person and then somebody else walks in and now watch what I'm going to do to them while you watch me do it to them. You know, that's the most horrific element of Terrifier 2. It's like it's not the kill itself, it's then the witness coming in and then seeing him continue the act in their presence. And because you put yourself in that presence, don't you? You put yourself in the situation. Like that's one of the things that I found the most empowering about the not empowering. That's a wrong choice of words completely.
It's
The
definitely
opening,
wrong.
the cold kill at the beginning is he kills a kid off screen, but then you've got the mum. The mum comes in and she sees the aftermath, and then that's fucking horrible. It's a horror.
Yeah.
It's a horrifying element of putting yourself in the mother's shoes and having to witness the aftermath of seeing one of your children being absolutely slain and scattered around a bedroom. Like, to me, that was a moment where, even though the kill itself was horrifying and was impactful, it was then her witnessing it that bothered me the most. And that was the same
Yeah.
with Terrifier 2. Yeah, that girl's kill was fucking god awful in the bedroom, but when her mother walks in and he then starts fucking puppeteering her on the bed, that's when it comes home, and that's when you're like, fuck, man. You don't get that as much here. You're right. You do not get that to the same
No.
level as you did in the previous movies.
Like, you get this kind of strangers home invasion bit at the end where Vicky and Art come in and they knock Sienna out, and then she wakes up and she's tied to a chair, and the auntie's tied to a chair, and like the auntie kill, it is what it is. I wasn't overly like. Like, I've read articles where David Howard Thornton's like, this one nearly made me sick, and I'm like, I don't think it's the worst in the movie. I've seen very similar kills with rats in movies where I can't remember what movie it is, but they put a bucket on someone's stomach.
That's Fast and the Furious too.
Like, we've seen the same kill in the Fast and the Furious franchise. Like,
that is the Fast and the Furious 2, and it was the first thing I thought of when I saw it. They've got that guy, that like drug lord guy, and they put the rat on his stomach, the fat bloke, and they heat the bucket with the torch, and it's going to penetrate through his skin.
Yeah,
Fast and the Furious, man.
I've seen this kill before. Yes, it's done in a new way, but it didn't make me go, oh, this is awful. And this whole segment, just like, it was cool, and it was cool to see like the demon speaking through Vicky and her eye glowing, and it was cool to see like the crown put on Sienna's head, because I've said all along that she's an angel or something connected to God. And like this whole segment I thought was great, right up until the point where they bring the little girl in, and Sienna's like, oh, well, can I just unwrap one more present? Or the little girl's like, oh, she should just unwrap one more present before you kill her. And they're like, yeah, okay. And give her the sword. I do like the fact he smashes her hands with a hammer first. That was
fucking brutal. I love this end segment, but I didn't like it the first time I watched this movie. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm the same as you. I thought this was the most fucking ludicrous, adventurous fucking Narnia shit I'd ever seen in my life. But then when I went back and watched the movie the second time and I started working out the lore and I was picking up on elements of it, when I watched it that second time, I was like, right, she's doing that because of this. They're trying to break her down. They're trying to kill everything that she loved to wean her down so Vicky can take over. Like, it all sort of tracked and made sense to me. And I was like picking up on all of these bits that I didn't necessarily do the first time. And then they drip feed the fact that Gabby is a snooper, and they do it throughout. She opens presents and she reads her diary. So, like, the fact that she'd already opened the present and knows what it is, and she knows what it is because she read in the diary. Like, I thought it was good. I'm not going to go as far as to say it was clever writing, because it's done on a basic level, but like,
it made sense,
and it's there and it works. And when you understand it and it works properly in the narrative, I was impressed by it, and I thought, hey, I'm not as pissed off with it as I was the first time I watched it, is what I'm trying to say.
No, and like, they do the thing where they pretend that this head in her cage is Gabby's head, and it turns out it's not. It's Jonathan's, and
do you think it's Jonathan's?
No, of course it's not Jonathan's. He'll be in.
So how are they going to do that? Because obviously the only reason that Art was on campus and killed the dude with the chainsaw was to go for Jonathan. That was his mission in that instance. He wasn't going to campus just willy nilly.
We'll get a flashback. We'll get a flashback in the. Yeah, I can't see that they'd kill Elliot Fullman off screen. One of the biggest.
I'm not saying they would, but I do think they'll commit to it. I do think he's dead. But I do think they will show it on screen in the next movie. I'm not saying that they were bluffing, because I don't think Damien Leone's that cheap. He knows horror. He knows how it works. And I think he's going to set it up as if it is, and it is a bluff. But then we'll go into Terrifier 4 and we'll see the actual execution of him in that movie, which is what I would prefer. I hope he does commit to that level of it and kills him in the opening credits.
Yeah, see, I'd like him to commit to it as well, but I don't think he's going to, and I think that will be down to distributor pressure again. But again, I'm saving that for facts because there's a particular film distributor that I'm going to tear a new bumhole when we get to facts. Because as far as I'm concerned, they fucking squandered this movie by making Damien Leone do things he didn't want to do. Oh, I'm angry.
That's annoying me that you're saying things like that because I don't.
Yeah,
I don't like
I'm saying.
thinking that he's bowed down to the masses,
Oh,
even the Japanese people.
100% he has bowed down, and I don't know why, but we'll find out, I'm sure, at some point. Sienna getting up, kicking everyone's ass was great. Like, I love the fact she killed Vicky off. I love the fact that the hole opens up in the ground as she's trying to save her cousin, and then her cousin gets sucked into hell, I'm assuming. And then she turns around and Art is gone. And I love the closing scene. Like Art sat on the bench or sat at the bus stop with all the snow coming down. And it's really dark and he's all battered and bruised. And then he gets on the bus and he sits across from that old lady. And he just looks so, you kind of sort of go, oh, you've had a bad day, haven't you, mate? And then you get the big beaming grin. I waited till the very end for a post-credit scene.
Yeah, there's not.
There is nothing. I think I'm kind of where I want to be thought-wise on this for now. You the same?
Yeah. Oh no, I think right. No, before we do go to all the stuff we do at this point in the stuff, Michael, that's not his name. Michael, as Sienna's dad. Let's discuss.
I didn't bring it up because I thought it was such a fucking pointless bit of story.
It is, but it isn't. I think. Do you know what it is as well? I think we went to the For Love of Horror not this year, but the year before, and that was a big Lost Boys showcase, and it was also the big Terrifier 2 showcase. And I think they met there, and that's why they was like, "Hey, would you be in our movie?" And I have to 100% think that is how that interaction happened, and he agreed to it, and he came and did a bit part for this.
Yeah, he's great. I think he's a fabulous actor. I think he does a really good job as Sienna's dad. But that didn't tell us any shit that we kind of didn't already know from Terrifier 2.
No.
All of that had already been insinuated. And again, I think there are some of those scenes missing. I don't think we've got all of those scenes. It feels like we got part 1 and part 2, but it feels like there should be another scene where you see that he's drawn Art the Clown and he's drawn Sienna fighting Art the Clown. I think that he's almost like a prophet. He's prophesied.
I mean, they've already mentioned, didn't they? They mentioned on the podcast, and they mentioned in part 2 how he was obsessed with her, but they reiterate it in the podcast episode as they're doing. They're like, oh yeah, and Sienna's dad is a big Art Clown fanatic, and he was obsessed with Art the Clown.
Yeah,
so it's got purpose.
Yeah, and if we're going the religious theme to it, Art's a demon, Sienna's an angel, or
I don't think Art is a demon. That's one thing that I did realize from Terrifier 3. I don't think he. I think he is on a certain level, but I think he's a foot soldier, which is what was one of the more interesting elements to me. Is that he is not. He's not the big bad. He's not the big bad. I think the possessive of Vicky and the kid in Terrifier 2, which then transferred to Vicky, that is a Pazuzu, and Art is the foot soldier in that battle.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think in that scenario, then Sienna's dad becomes the prophet or foretelling what's coming in his comics. And I think
Sienna is the savior.
Yeah, and I think in Terrifier 4, there's probably going to be a bit where it's going to show you a bit of one of his comics where he's telling you how it's going to end. He's written the whole story. I'm fucking convinced he has. Like, that character knows how this plays out all the way through, which is why he made the sword, which is why he made the costume. Like, he knows.
Did he make the sword? Was that? I can't remember that from Terrifier 2. Did he make the sword?
He didn't make the sword. I can't remember how she got the sword, but I think that he kind of prophesized all of this coming together. And you see that flash where Sienna sees a demon working chained by the Virgin Mary to make her armor. In Terrifier 4, she is going to be in full, not costume like Terrifier 2, but full on fucking archangel armor with the wings, the whole shebang. I'm convinced of it.
I hope they do. I think he has a clear vision. When I watched Terrifier 2, I was like, he's just making this shit as he goes. He doesn't know his end game. He doesn't know how this is going to pan out. And I do think there still is a certain level of that, but I think because he's had 4 years now from Terrifier 1, 5 years since Terrifier 1, I think he has an end game now, and I think he's doing a very good job of slowly building to it, but whilst keeping the movies consistently vague. That's one thing. It's like I annoyed by Terrifier 1. It was vague. It didn't ring a lot. It was just fucking wildly absurd. Terrifier 2, it dived into the lore a bit, but again, it was still wildly absurd. Terrifier 3 dived into the lore a little bit further, but it was still wildly absurd. So, he hasn't just taken that road where it's like, right, yeah, we'll give him everything in one movie and that's it. He's been very consistent with these installments, which is one of the things I criticized heavily previously, but then the more he goes on and the less inconsistent he becomes, I'm like, yeah, do you know what? Actually, if you nail this, if you fucking nail this by the time you wrap it up, whether that be Terrifier 4 or Terrifier 5, and this becomes one of the most cohesive, inconsistently cohesive stories if you watch the segments individually, but you watch them in a full Lord of the Rings style marathon from 1 to 5, this is going to be one of the greatest achievements in modern horror.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that's a good time to take a break. We agreed.
When you have finished this episode, why not head over to yourunpodcast.com and see what else is on offer. Launched at the start of the year, the network is a place for podcasters and YouTubers alike to showcase their fantastic work. Over the last 12 months, we have carefully curated a selection of 15 shows, bringing you something to suit all tastes. Movie reviews, TV series discussion, true crime, conspiracy theories, paranormal investigation, and crypt tales are a selection of what is on offer. Also on the website, you will find links to all of our socials, our shop, and our first feature-length film. The You Run Podcast Network really is your home of entertainment, so don't delay, get online and visit yourunpodcast.com and find your next binge-worthy experience. Now back to the show.
So please go and check out yourunpodcast.com. There's so many great shows part of the network now. Go and have a look, find another show, give them a couple of listens. There's so much there you can binge on. So yourunpodcast.com. Also, our merch is there as well. So if you want to help the show out, you can buy a t-shirt or you can just enter the competition and try and win one. Let's do some facts. I'm going to start off with the one that I've been teasing all the way through. So this was distributed by Cineverse. And Cineverse can kiss my ass. So they had one request of Damien Leone, is that he kept the film under 2 hours. Now, Damien Leone worked as his own editor again. So he edited this himself and he got it down to 2 hours 5. And I am saying now he cut so much that was required in this movie to please his distributor. And I really wish he hadn't.
So, do you have the backstory on the distributors for 1 and 2? Was that bloody disgusting?
That was bloody disgusting, yeah.
And they give him free rein, do what you want.
Pretty much. I think Bloody Disgusting is still involved in this, but it was Cineverse who went, look, for us to distribute this and to be able to sell it out to all these different outlets and get it into all these cinemas and give you this global release that you need, it needs to be under 2 hours. And he buckled to it. And I really wish he hadn't.
But why would he do that? Because he didn't need to do that in the previous movie, and that still garnered the fucking mass phenomenon that it did in cinema as well, considering its short release. He must have known that he didn't need to buckle.
I don't think he buckled because he had to. I think he buckled because he wanted to reach that wider audience, and Cineverse gave him the option to reach all of these cinemas, every cinema. Like this went in almost every cinema on the planet, and with a 3.5 hour runtime, that probably wouldn't have been the case. And I get it. I understand why he did, but there is a version of this film that is so much better with all the bits that I want that are missing. He filmed them. I know he did. I've watched Terrifier, the director's cut of Terrifier 2. I've seen it. I've seen the depths of story that he will tell and the 15-minute long conversation scenes that mainstream audiences may not want to watch. But as a fan of this franchise, I do. I want to understand. I want
And
to
you'll
see.
get it, but you'll just have to pay for it twice, and that's half the problem. You'll have to pay
Yeah.
to see a director's cut version of it, or an uncut or an unrated version of Terrifier 2, which will have all those added scenes. But it's reached a point now with this franchise where it's not about the filmmaking, it's about the marketing, it's about the profit, and if they can sell this film twice by giving you a shorter release version and then giving you a physical media copy that's 2 hours long or 3 hours long or 4 hours long, depending on what you want, they will do that because they can charge you twice for the same movie, and unfortunately, that's it. It's business, man. That's how it is. It's fucking awful, and it pisses the fans off to no end. And I'm with you. It's disappointing that Damien Leone has succumbed to it, but in a way, I don't begrudge the guy for doing so.
No,
because
not at all. But I blame
what he's
Cineverse.
done with his
Fuck
movies and
Cineverse.
what he's taking them to,
Yeah,
man, I don't know what I would do in that position either, regardless of how committed I was. If he felt himself, because I can only imagine he's passionate enough to know that what he's delivered with his release of Terrifier 3, regardless of mine and yours opinions on it, he must have been in a position where he's like, right, if I'm going to do it, I need to make sure that the cut that I do release is suffice. It has to be up to par. And I think that he's delivered on that in a certain way, if not more so, in my opinion. Granted, I'm with you. I want to see that 4-hour cut. I want to see all those added bits. And there is elements of this movie where it does feel that it is missing. But I don't know, man. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to begrudge the guy. He's come from what he has.
I don't begrudge Damien Leone at all. I begrudge Cineverse for actually asking him. I think they're fucking out of order for asking the man to compromise his vision when he built this from ground up, doing exactly what he knew he needed to. He garnered his fan base based on giving us this uncut, full version of Terrifier 2. That's where he really made it, by just giving us exactly what he wanted to, and we all lapped it up and went, this is brilliant, this is so good, you've given us a very long movie, but we love it. And here we're talking about Terrifier 3 and we're going, it's not that long a movie, it's 2 hours, but there's so much that's missing. Our complaints are what's not there, not what is there. It's like the bits that are missing is what our complaints are.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, everybody complained about the second movie; it was too long. It was this. It was, and then everybody. Now that's why I was like, has he done this himself? Is he just listening too much to the fans, and he's like condensed it in order to appease people? I'm like, oh, don't do it to appease other people. Stick to your vision. But like, I would be more pissed off if he'd done it for the fans.
Yeah, I would as well.
Which is a weird thing to say. Like, I'd be more pissed off if he'd done it to appease general audiences because they were annoyed that it was slightly too long. But if he's done it from a business standpoint, I can't begrudge the guy for doing it.
Yeah, I get it. There was several big studios who approached him for interest in before they even saw the script after Terrifier 2. He turned them all down, not because he didn't want to work with them, he didn't want to have them to have an element of control. He turned them all down because he knew that none of them would let him film the opening scene, let alone anything else. Like, the opening scene for most big studios would be like, absolutely not. And yeah, I like that. He's like, yeah, look, it's great you want to work with me and all, but like, my opening scene, you're going to say no. And for that reason, it's a no from me.
Which is wild, because other than Walt Disney, there isn't a lot of studios where you would go. So say if this was released by Warner or 20th Century Fox, which is no longer existent because they've been taken over by Disney. But by the by, my point is like, if you watch a Die Hard movie and you're like, this is just gratuitous violence, it's a Die Hard movie, this is never going to happen, and you're showcasing terrorists in a good light, you don't go for 20th Century Fox because of that. You go for the movie itself and you go for the director. So like, I don't get when production companies such as this are like, oh, no, you've got to rein it in. They're not coming for you unless you're Walt Disney and releasing an Alien movie. It's like,
Yeah.
why do you care? Why do you care? They're not coming for you because of the production company. They're coming for the title of the movie, you know. And I
Yeah.
don't understand that.
Production wise, this took a big step up. So Terrifier 1 and 2, it had a crew that consisted between 5 and 12 people at any one time. This had the full production crew. Like, look at the credits of this and look at the credits of Terrifier 2. Like, the credits of Terrifier 2 is like Bob is mentioned 11 times because Bob done 11 things. In this, there's like key grip assistant, key grip's assistant's assistant, key grip's assistant's T-boy. Like, it's a proper, and I imagine for Damien Leone and the cast, that must have been wonderful to go that first day on set where they've got like a proper set and they've got fucking people everywhere. That must have been a like,
Yeah.
Fuck, do you know what? We've made it. Like, this is the big time. And I'm really pleased for him for that.
Maybe that's why he went for the Christmas theme. He was just like, this is like Christmas Day for me.
The tube with the rat kill, that made David Howard Thornton almost threw up. He hates vomit. And there's a lot of vomit in that. Apparently, a lot of it was cut out. And he's convinced that it was only put in there to try and make him gag. And I'm waiting for the blooper reel where he is gagging because I know that exists.
Oh, it's coming.
Damien Leone had 1 year to put this together. Took him 6 years to make Terrifier 2. He had a year to do this. He made it barely on time. So he completed filming in early September, or editing early September. And this was screened at Fantastic Fest that same month. So he literally finished editing, went, I'm done. And then like a week later, this was screened. That's how close he was to this not reaching its release date. Final one. So in the scene involving Burke, which is Chris Jericho's character, there's a nod to another wrestler that I picked up on because we have a house full of wrestling fans here. Chris Jericho is using a cup, and on that cup is Stone Cold Steve Austin's logo.
Oh, I didn't notice that at all.
I did. I was like, okay, that's quite funny. Caption This is back this week. Considering this is the most requested episode of the year, I am thoroughly disappointed with the lack of response we got for this Caption This. Like, this is it's not even like I give you a bad picture to caption. So, like, this is the picture. There's a lot you can do with that.
Right,
and
what did we get?
We got Mike the Movie Misfit. When she shows you how to use shows you what the 3 seashells are for. That made me laugh.
Read that. I didn't get it. I mean, it's a demolition. It's a demolition.
Yeah,
reference,
so he's shocked. Like,
what the reference was to the picture.
Someone's like, "Oh, you showed me the 3 seashells."
Yeah, okay, yeah, I get it now.
Mike's a movie account.
Yeah. I still need to know what the 3 seashells are.
Yeah, so do I. Under the Floorboard podcast, when she sees your movie collection. Yeah, works. That's one of the newest members to the You Run Podcast Network. Go and check them out at yourunpodcast.com. Old Nerdy Bastard. We beat Joker at the box office. Yes, it did. Absolutely spanked. Joker 2 absolutely trounced it. Not even by a little bit. Kicked it all over the place.
No, landslide.
Exactly that. And they're one part of the You Gonna Eat This Crust podcast, also members of the You Run Podcast Network, and our guests in January. Dewey Podmonster, also member of the You Run Podcast Network, also fabulous show. Went really simply with, and I'm going to show the picture again. Wrong hole.
Okay, that one's for the win.
Yeah. And finally, Dissect That Film Pod. Again, movie podcast went with When You'll Find Your Dad's Playboy Collection. Did you ever do that? Find like gold. Dad? Did you ever find Dad's porn collection?
Yeah, tapes.
Oh, you found tapes. See, I found magazines, like proper old school, and a like scrapbook of Sam Fox. Do you remember Sam Fox?
I do remember Sam Fox, yeah.
Yes, scrapbook of Sam Fox, and sadly, when my mum and dad died, I remember going into my parents' room because we had to clear the house out.
Fucking hell, man. Just
And-
fucking
and
bring the tone down on the episode, William.
Well, no.
Jesus.
No. This is quite funny because obviously my sister didn't know that this special drawer in my dad's chest of drawers existed, and I did. So the first thing I did was went straight upstairs, got a bin bag, put that stuff in it, and took it away so my sister didn't find out that my dad had porn. Anyway, if you listened to last week, you know that these two episodes are thrown together back to back. You also know that I threw these episodes together with about an hour before we recorded. So I've managed to create a game for this, but we're kind of scraping the barrel with this one.
I have a game.
I have a game.
I have a game.
It's called Guess What Happened
When I Take Over Next Week.
I am the You Run podcast.
Dude, what's his pitch doing, man?
I don't, it's not nice. I don't like it.
Why is she randomly popping up? I'm nervous for what you've got in store with Gladys.
She's claiming to take over, and she is the You Run podcast. Well, anyway, not sure what's going on with her. We are scraping the bottom of the barrel with this game. This is a Christmas image game. Mark's going to describe the images that I show him. If I think he does a good job, and I think you as the listener will understand what he's describing, I will take a drink. If he does a bad job, Mark will take a drink. And there are 10 pictures, and there were 10 questions last time, and I've done a whole beer, and I've just opened a new one. I'd like not to do a whole beer this time. So do you understand the game, first of all?
Describe the picture.
Yeah. Okay, cool. You get it. I'm going to show you your first picture now.
I get it.
Here's your first picture.
Okay, this kind of looks like the setup for a video you would click on Pornhub, even though you probably shouldn't click on it. It's a seedy old man that has a t-shirt that says "Chilling with my hoes," and each individual hoe has a t-shirt that says "Ho ho ho" on it. Stood in front of a Christmas tree.
That works. I'll take a drink. You don't get one for that. As with all of these games, they get progressively harder. How about this one?
It's like if the Matrix kind of had an overlord and it was Christmas Day.
Yeah, you could take a drink for that one. No one knows what you're talking about. you can drink. Right, let's go with the next one. How about that?
What the fuck even is that? I have to be very careful what I'm saying. Right, this right. This is a bauble with exceptionally big ears and a weird China doll face and a Buddhist dot on its forehead.
I'll give you that. I'll have a sip.
I think I played that safe. I feel like that was a setup. That one.
Oh, if you think that's a setup, we haven't even got started yet. What's this one?
What the fuck is that? This is basically what it would look like if a turkey was giving birth to Santa Claus.
Do you know that's the perfect description? I thought it looked like a testicle with Santa's head stuck on it. I will drink again. Right. How about this one?
Oh, this is me chilling on a weekend, especially on a festive weekend with my bitches.
That's terrible. You drink.
Okay, I'll take a drink. I'll take a drink.
Right. This one initially I thought was a photograph of you when you were much younger.
What the fuck? So if you imagine, if you're British or if you're not familiar with British culture, do you know those guards that guard the Buckingham Palace where the Queen and the King live and stuff like that? They have those really big headdresses, and you think they're like exceptionally long helmets. They're not. They're not. They're really thin, basically like a woolly hat. And what they do is they just pull them over their hair. That is what this image is. This is an image of the guy without his uniform on holding a curling iron.
I will give you that, but I think that was tenuous whether you get that or not.
I didn't deserve it, but it was a stretch.
How about this one?
What? I actually don't even know what that is.
Well, you can take a drink.
I will take a drink because that's
that is a baby Jesus from a nativity.
No, it's not.
It is. It's meant to be.
No, it's not.
And the fact is, it looks like it's about to be the start of an exorcism, but that's what it is. Did you drink?
I think so.
Right. We have 3 more, and these are the 3 weirdest that when I saw them, I laughed so hard because they're so like, what the actual fuck? Let's go with this one, and this is the Christmas tree I want next year.
Oh, dude, that is fucking awesome. This is Godzilla as a Christmas tree, basically. I don't know how else to possibly describe this to you. This is a Godzilla Christmas tree with Godzilla stockings. I want this in my house.
Yeah, it breathes smoke and everything. It's awesome. Right, I will take a drink. We have 2 left. These are the 2 hardest, I think, to describe. Let's go with this one.
Right, okay. So this is Brighton Beach with Father Christmas and a half human, half Rudolph hybrid paddling, doggy paddling in the. Where have you found these images?
Don't ask. I will give you that. However, I don't think it's Brighton Beach. I think it's probably somewhere more tropical. That water was blue, not brown. And the final image.
This is Marilyn Monroe's human centipede with her children. I think. I don't know.
I'm not giving you that. You can have a drink purely because I refuse to do another whole beer. And yeah, that was our thrown together Christmas game, and really enjoyable for anyone watching on Spotify. Just so you know, on Spotify it is a video podcast, also a video podcast on YouTube, released the day after it comes out on Spotify. I'm gonna take review on this first roundups. I love Terrifier 2. Like, I gave it top marks when we reviewed it. We reviewed it again for a rapid review on YouTube like 2 years later, and it's still got top marks for me. It had some nods in horror movies too, in Terrifier 2, quite a few, and I thought they were all handled really well. It had great kills. The storyline was serviceable. It had lots of religious tones to it that I loved. This is kind of the same, but it's missing a lot. And I've said it all the way through. I don't have an issue with what's been put together. What I have an issue with is what has been removed. Because of what they've removed, it makes the plot feel a lot thinner than I think it actually is. The scenes where they're establishing law, it seems to be very much like, we're establishing law. Let's have a kill. We're establishing some more law. Let's have a kill. Where in Terrifier 2, it kind of all blended together. There's no standout kill for me in this. There's like Terrifier 1 is the girl upside down cut in half. Terrifier 2, I could pick a couple. You've got the bedroom scene, and you've also got the vicious beating of Sienna that goes on for ages. Like, both of those scenes are harrowing. In this, I didn't find that scene. Like, there's some horrific scenes in this, but there wasn't one that I'm like, that's the one. That's the thing that's like the worst thing I've seen. I felt there was a shift in focus, especially in the closing act, from art to Vicky. And I get it. Like, she is
purposeful.
Yeah, it is purposeful, but I'm here for art. Like, I think that could have been handled a little bit more delicately. And I think if I see the full movie, it probably is fleshed out a little bit more. I didn't hate this. I applaud Damien Leone for everything he's done and the team behind him for taking this from a guy working in his shed with some practical effects to the largest independent horror franchise on the planet. Like, that is the best thing in the world. And I think Terrifier as a whole is good for horror. Damien Leone is definitely good for horror. It didn't bring enough for me to give it top marks. It's a good movie, but I'm going to score this exactly where I scored Krampus. This is a 3 out of 5.
That's all right. That's a fair score. I mean, it's not, and I say that being somebody who has been below average on all of my Terrifier reviews up until this point, which is wild because I'm going in the complete opposite direction. I fucking love Terrifier 3. I think it is the best of the trilogy so far. I was one of those people where I watched it the first time round and I just couldn't understand the fascination and the love for this movie. I was like, I don't get it. What am I missing that everybody else is so applauding of? And then I watched it for a second time, and when I watched it that second time, I paid attention and I gave it the time that it needed to pick up on the dialogue. Because I think when I went into it the second time, I was just there for art slashing and art killing. And that was always my biggest gripe going in with the previous two movies. I was like, I need lore, I need backstory, I need this, I need that. But then I'd become so accustomed to what I'd got from the previous two movies that was what I was expecting from this. And when I paid attention and I peeled back those layers and I uncovered the things that progress a story and develop the lore of art and expanded on Vicky's character, and I was just so blown away by how they could present those levels of development by doing it in such an underlining way that if you weren't a dedicated fan, you could still go into Terrifier 3 and watch it for what it was and not be completely dysregulated by the overall confusion of his lore. But for those who are there seeking it, it is definitely there. It's definitely there. If you didn't pick it up on your first watch, go back and watch it again because it is black and white throughout and it's presented so readily for you. But I didn't get it on that first watch, and I don't know why, because I was one of those people who was seeking it so desperately from the previous two movies. I think this is a major step up. I think it's going in definitely the right direction. I think it does all hinge on that full circle movie, whether that be Terrifier 4, whether that be Terrifier 5, or however far this franchise goes
Terrifier
in the
9.
future. Yeah, exactly. But I think even if it does go as far as being that 9, 8, 7, 6, whatever it goes to in terms of giving that final closure, it has the potential to be something magnificent. It really, really does. Regardless of the gripes that we have along the way with minor tweaks and minor twerks that we would change as horror fans, I think this is really doing something special, and I'm really grateful that I'm here for that movement. Like I grew up in an era where Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger, they were big. They were big, man. They were like, you go to the cinema to see every single installment. And I think Terrifier is that movement for our generation. You know, as much as I love those movies now, I didn't have the experience of going to the cinema to watch those. They were the kind of things that I discovered on VHS or DVD as I grew up, you know. But I'm living in an era. I'm living in a movement where I'm in a modern day Michael, Freddy, Jason movement, and I'm here for it. And this is going to be one of those things where my kids grow up and they watch. Have you seen Terrifier? Have you seen the first Terrifier? What's your favorite Terrifier movie? You know, and I'm living it. I'm living it now, and I think it's a really, really good time to be alive as a horror fan. for our generation to be taking these things on and appreciating them for what they are. There's issues with this movie. I'm not going to lie to you. There's things about it that I like and things about it that I dislike. I didn't like the bombing of the children in the mall. I thought that was one step too far. I also really disliked the over animated performance from David Howard Thornton in this movie. And I don't know whether that was an actor issue or whether that was a directional cue from Damien Leone, but he felt very Mr. Bean-esque in a way. He took that. So like in Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2, we get that kind of humorized mimic level from him. But here, it was almost like it was just stretching that personality of Art the Clown that little bit too far.
Yeah.
It was giving him a little bit too much. And the biggest showcase of that is that scene just before he kills the boyfriend and girlfriend in the shower when he's over listening on the conversation and they're talking about, I wonder what he smells like. I'd love to hear him on my breath. That kind of thing. And he's very over animated to the point where it's almost comedic.
Yeah.
And I think they need to rein that back a little bit because that relinquishes a lot of the terror and anxiety that you usually get from Art the Clown. It made him too humorous, in my opinion, in this third movie.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a character flaw. I think they're just they're almost the walking the line of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise as the sequels go forward.
Yeah. Yeah, very much. He's one like over animation away from
he's
being
a dream
MTV.
master away from being full Freddy Krueger, you know. And I think that's one thing they need to pay close attention to because that's a make or break for these movies going forward. If they lean too heavily into that side of things, it's really going to make everything else around it fall apart, and then we're not going to get the overarching story that we need to conclude what is such an impactful 1 and 2 in this story.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think they're very much in that Dream Master level, Dream Warriors level with Terrifier 3, but they go too heavily on it in the next one, and I think it's game over for this as a character. So if you're listening, Damien Leone, which I know you are, you're a big fan. We appreciate your support.
You dirty bitch!
But for me, I love this movie. I thought it was great. I think it's the best one so far. I think it added levels to this movie and this franchise that I wanted. Granted, it took me a second watch to get there with it, but yeah, I'm on board and I'm very, very excited for Terrifier 4. I hope we don't have to wait 2 years to get it. Which we probably will, and if that's what it takes for him to flesh it out properly, I'm a patient enough dude to wait for it. But yeah, big props. I'm going to give this I came in wanting to give it a 4, but I don't know, man. I just want to feel like I do. I want to give it higher because I like it so much. So I'm going to go 4.5 out of 5. That's the highest.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God! Stop you fucking lying.
4.5 out of 5. What? That is the highest you've scored a Terrifier movie.
That is the highest I've scored a Terrifier movie. And those of you who listen to the show know I have been a big hater. Or I haven't been a big hater. I've been a big, this has potential, but I'm going to hate on what they're doing, but I love what they're doing. So you know that my scores for Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2 have been very mediocre.
Mine have been all over the place.
With this dude. I'm on board with this dude, man. This movie just did something for me on that second watch where I was like, shit, man, yeah, like, I'm invested now. But like, I'm one of those people, I'm a collector. You know me.
Yeah.
I have an addictive personality. I collect things. I VHS, masses. And it feels like I'm now a Terrifier collector where I'm deep that far into the lore that I'm addicted to know to where it goes.
See, my scores for this franchise are wild. I went 153. Like, it's the worst movie ever. I fucking love this. It was okay. That's where I
think I've been quite consistent. I think I went 2, 3, 4.5.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it all hinges on the next movie. Next week, we are going to be reviewing a movie for New Year's Eve, and we are going to be reviewing The Terminator, the original Terminator, all about an AI takeover, which may have something to do with Gladys's involvement in this week's episode. I'm sure that Gladys will feature heavily next week in one way or the other. I'm not on board for Gladys after this week.
No, I'm not on board for Gladys in any capacity, to be honest with you.
But less so this week. Like, normally she's a bit of a dick, but like this week she's like been a dick.
Massive dick. She's made me a little bit nervous, actually, with these introductions she's been making on this week's episode.
Yeah, she's threatened us. She's coming for us, and she is the You Run podcast.
That bitch runs on electricity. I'll just pull the plug, man. Fuck that hoe.
Yeah. Well, until next week, have a wonderful week. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. Spend time with family, drink, be happy, be merry, do all the wonderful things. And we'll catch you next week. And to play us out now, here's our AI AI closing music. See you all later.
See you next week, guys.
It's Christmas time, it's the time to be afraid. It's Christmas time, it's time to talk about being named. And on this podcast of horror, we'll spread a little fear. Watch a horror movie now and grab a beer. And then Scott mentions the actress's boobs, followed by Mark saying, come on, dude. This is the place to have fun and say a curse or two. You Run Podcast Horror Movie Review. Watch a horror, do it now, it's Christmas time. Watch a horror, do it now, it's Christmas time. Watch a horror, then listen to a great fun review. Podcast Christmas. Do it now, it's Christmas time. Do it now, it's Christmas time. Watch a horror, then listen to a great fun review. Podcast Christmas. You Run Podcast Christmas.
You dirty bitch!
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.